All right. Oh, all right. Get it worked out of you. Good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Three, two, one. Welcome to the PPV podcast. We are live at the South Sueño compound here in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I have a very special guest, a good buddy of mine, Imran Khan, otherwise known as Fiji.
How's it going, guys? Excited to be here. Like Eric said, we work together, good buddies. We got hired together, went to paramedic school together. So um, definitely been a good brother up to this point, and I see that being true going forward. So
Um, yeah, absolutely, man. Me and Fiji definitely go back. Like you said, we went to the academy, and what made me want to have him on the show today was last week we went up to Prescott. We ended up driving together, and from here it's what, like a 2 hour drive or so.
yeah, about 2 hours.
So drive up there for a work deal, and we just had like we kind of started getting into conversation that was like really good, really meaningful, and I remember thinking like, man, I wish like more people could hear some of these conversations that happen in environments like this when it's just two good buddies, kind of getting away from it all. So I know Fiji well, and I know a part of his story. I thought it'd be a good place to start this thing with my first guest. Like, again, everyone kind of goes through things differently. Everyone has a different path on life, but the things that we talked about were really kind of focusing Christian values and our coming into faith. Um, so as we get on in this show today, like that's kind of what my goal is, to hit those types of things, and then how that ultimately, um, changes our perspective as first responders, public safety out in the field, treating people, and those types of things. So, I guess a point that I wanted to start at was, would you share kind of some of the struggles and challenges that you had growing up, where you kind of started, where you grew up, all that type of stuff, and then eventually how you got into actually firefighting? Like, what was that journey like from there?
Okay. Well, born and raised in Bellingham, Washington, small farm town. Back when I lived there, it was about 30,000 people. Started there with my dad and my mom, both who were born and raised in Fiji. My family goes about 3, 4 generations back in Fiji.
I actually did not know that. I
Yeah,
thought that was just a random
no,
nickname.
no. So they came here in 1993. Actually, they came to California first. Had my older sister in 1993, and then 96 in Washington had me. Um, and then my parents split up about a year after I was born. My grandfather, who also came from Fiji, he lived in Canada about, I don't know, about an hour away. And so he used to watch me for like 3 weeks, bring me back for a week. My dad worked 2, 3 jobs. He was a mechanic. Um, so grew up with that. And shortly after him and my biological mom split up, my stepmom came into my life. And she actually used to babysit me early on. And then her and my dad ended up getting married. And she's the mom I know growing up. And she's kind of been the the biggest influence in my life. Um, but she had 6 brothers. So I grew up with 6 uncles. They were all military. 4 out of the 6 had like some sort of farm country land, but one of them, who probably my biggest male role model figure, was my uncle Glenn. He had, I think, somewhere around 30 acres in Washington, 15 horses, 20 to 30 cattle. And so I grew up with them. I steer wrestled for a bit and kind of just grew up around horses and livestock. And they're the ones who originally taught me some values, because we used to go to church on Sundays. Lots and lots of family time. Family was super important. But I can say it's kind of that act of going, but not necessarily being present. Because
Yeah.
you're a kid, you don't
Yeah.
really know what's going on. But I would say the struggles I had were, I'm sure there's some struggles with my biological parents splitting up early on. I don't think I knew them too well, but my dad worked very hard, but he was one of those fathers that was there but wasn't really present. So alcoholic. Um, and when I say an alcoholic, I can tell you. Obviously, back then I was too little to know what was going on, but I can tell you when I was in high school, my dad drank 3 or 4 beers before work at 5 a.m., 3 or 4 on the way to work, and then drank while he was at work. Came home, would finish a 12 pack at home, and then maybe a bottle of tequila, and that was
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
So um, that struggle was more so my dad and I didn't talk. Like we didn't have any of these conversations about how to grow up. You know what it was to be a man. He just kind of he taught me how to work on cars, and I after the fact I know what hard work looked like. He did work his butt off, but as far as being a man there for his family, he wasn't really that. He paid the bills. Um, Everything that I didn't get from him, I got from my mom. Like I said, I had one older sister, 3 years older, and then I have two older sisters. So I'm 29, about to be 30. My oldest sister's 45, and one underneath her, Heather. Heather's 44. And so as soon as they were 18, they were out of the house. So I really just grew up with the one sister. Um, Again, talking about struggles. Uh, when my dad drank, he was more verbally, emotionally abusive, but physical sometimes. And so since I was 11, 12, I was kind of the protector in the house. So that was my job with him, which I think had some struggles. I think more so there's like a lack of peace in your home,
Mm-hmm.
which I think you don't realize until it manifests later. But um, and that's kind of what led me into fire was didn't think about it back then, but I mean we called the cops quite a bit. Called 911. My mom used to have anxiety attacks when her and my dad would fight. She did actually have a heart attack at one point, so the two always seemed very similar for her. So she called quite a bit,
Sure.
and then didn't realize that the fire department we worked for was the department that showed up. And so my best friend ended up doing a cadet program when we were 15, convinced me to do it after he did it, and so I joined that program, and that was the first solid place that I had male role models that treated each other like family, and it was the first place that I showed up where somebody didn't necessarily uh, wasn't necessarily satisfied with my performance, but they didn't just tell me that they were disappointed. They actually told me how to get better, and they saw potential for me to get better. Played basketball my entire life, and I never had a coach really tell me how to get better. You kind of just like, you're not cutting it.
Yeah.
And same thing at home. So briefly, that's kind of what brought me there.
So do you remember like so I remember after the academy we actually got put at our first station together. We were at the same station.
Mhm.
Do you remember like what your view of like what we do now? Do you remember what your view was then starting out and then, maybe 5 years into it? Do you remember like what it initially was and how that changed over time?
Um,
Because I remember
yeah.
like wide eyed, like, man, I'm so lucky I get to do this job. Every call in the world is so cool. Like I could do this for free. Like I want to stay here all the time.
Mhm.
And then for me, I remember after like that 3 to 5 year mark when you get real salty, which just happens for some reason. Like I feel like I had a different, more negative outlook. Like, oh man, I gotta go to work today. I gotta do this. I gotta don't do this enough. We don't get this. Like you almost start falling into that like negative kitchen table space talk.
Yeah.
Was that the same for you?
It was similar. So I guess one thing that I didn't bring up in the struggles was so you brought up that you didn't know like where Fiji came from,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people, and we talked about it in our academy, right? Every
Yeah.
day I was a different.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you're gonna get me canceled.
Yeah. um, but so not a whole lot of people did know that my background was Fijian. Everyone thought either I was Muslim, and or that I was from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Didn't help that we grew up also like right after 9/11, and so I would say from age 9 to age 14, 15, I can tell you I'd go to school and nobody called me my name. I was terrorist to
Damn.
everybody. Like the basketball team I was on, that's what I was. And so I had the strong thing where like eventually I learned like don't try to not fit in. Try to fit in. Try to fly under the radar, blend
Yeah, just
in.
be mediocre.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be smart, don't be
Yep.
athletic, don't whatever, right? And a little bit of that is in the fire service as well, right?
Yep.
Especially your first year.
Yep.
Don't open your mouth, don't get yourself any attention. And so, but getting hired where we got hired, especially when we got hired because it was so difficult to get hired back then, right?
Yeah, it was.
And it was you got to be the top 1% is
Yeah,
what I
back in
thought.
our day.
Yeah. Um,
But
and
yeah.
it's funny that like I thought that was some valid. I get this job, like I made it, and I like had this feeling of like validation. I think I had that, and that lasted for like a couple months, maybe,
Yep.
maybe through the end of probation, maybe. But yeah, I thought this job was like just. I mean, I wanted it because everybody I talked to that did it, best thing ever.
Yeah.
I get to go to work. I don't
Yep.
have to go to work,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And so, yeah, when we got hired, I thought, all right, this is it. This is the shit, right? And then um, people you looked up to maybe let you down. Maybe you realize that some environments are very, very negative, very, very toxic. And not everybody is there with the mindset of like that they're there to help people.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the fire service are entitled. Um, and I think it's easy to get that negative and it's easy to get sucked into that negative environment as
Totally.
well.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's kind of like what I was leading into was like you hit that year mark. So like on probation, for those of you that are not familiar, like probation is a time where you're basically expected to do everything. First one up, you unload the dishwasher, go wash the trucks, clean all the toilets, like stations clean, on top of like learning all your basic skills. Like it's a year long. So it's just a time that you're supposed to be like earning your keep, right? Like earning your respect from your different crews and kind of building your reputation a little bit. It's a very uncomfortable time. And then after you get off probation, like literally it's the year mark. Okay, cool. You're off. You're one of us, like full fledged. But you kind of start like needing a little bit of time to like, okay, this is who I am. Like now I'm comfortable. Then you kind of swing to the other side of the spectrum where you're like, okay, I'm way too comfortable. Now I'm falling into these conversations with maybe some of the people that are known to be more negative, and you're like, yeah, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Like getting like, bringing the pitchforks to the meetings now. Um, and it's so easy to fall into that because you're kind of just like you said, like in that if you're in that environment, like you better believe you're going to be part of that environment unless you have some type of either incident or mindset shift or something in your life. Like again, I talked about last time the whole thing with the PPE, like unless you have something in your life that you're going to allow as an exhaust point and something that's going to be positioned to bring fresh air into that toxic environment, you will remain in it, right? So I think that's a good transition for us to talk about. Like what I know about you recently is something that I've gone through myself in life that's kind of helped me have this shift is you're kind of a new Christian coming into your faith, recently baptized. Do you want to
Hmm.
talk about that and that journey and where
Yeah,
you're at today with it?
yeah. So yeah, definitely found my faith recently, and I think that talking about that whole PPV aspect of your life and that you need that faith has been mine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't realize it until I don't know. I think you hit that part with work where maybe it's not you're just going through a rough patch where it's not always super fun, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then you come home and um, maybe you're in a relationship, maybe you just have a chaotic family life at home, so you lack peace there. And then for me, my parents are going through a divorce as well, and I had to go and kind of deal with my parents in Washington, and I was just kind of wondering, like, what is my purpose here?
Mm-hmm.
Am I living my purpose? I don't know. And I realized that we talked about the fire service and having those role models that might let you down. I think think some of the people I looked up to, I was like, okay, that's somebody I can emulate. I respect them as a father, respect them as a firefighter, respect their outlook on things. And then maybe they let you down, and then now you're like, okay, am I doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt a little lost, felt like without my
Yeah.
true north, right?
As you would as a kid looking up to your father or whoever
Mm-hmm.
as that person, and then when you get let down, you're kind of like, it feels that same way. Like I tell people, like I was raised in the military and the fire service. Like I got hired at 23. How old were you when you got hired?
21 turned
Like
22 in our
you're
academy.
just a
Yep.
young man. I went into the military right after high school. Like you're just a young man still learning, and I do the same thing. I look at people like, man, that's a great father. He calls his kids every day, before we go to sleep, just to tell them good night. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like, just little things that you're like, I want to do that. I want to be like that. I like what he's doing there. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
get that, dude.
Yeah. And so I remember one day I was running with a buddy of ours, and tough day. Looking up at this run, and this run was like the most difficult thing ever. And I was like, is this God telling me that I've been doing all the wrong things up until this point? It's like my punishment, like him telling me, hey, this is what you get. You get to climb this mountain. It's 110 degrees out. You're dehydrated. You feel like crap, and it's your fault, right? And so what I started to do instead is I didn't like how negative that mindset was. I felt like I was blaming others for things, and so I spent 2 weeks, went up to Flagstaff with a buddy of mine, Ty, and just so happened he started getting super involved in his church. He grew up in a very similar situation to me. Didn't grow up with like God being in his household. They went to church on Sundays every now and again, but
Mm-hmm.
him and his fiance started. They volunteer at the church. They go there and they help with Bible study and stuff. And so I went with him, and um, I just had never felt more welcome somewhere. And I had always felt like when I was in a church, I was in the right place, but I can't say I understood a whole lot. I always felt a little bit like,
Yeah. Do I belong?
yeah,
Is this
like
for me?
they know I don't like
Yeah.
they.
They
Everyone
can
in here knows I
tell.
haven't read the Bible,
Yeah.
right?
They know.
Yeah, and so, but I didn't feel that in this church, and we were able to have these conversations. The pastor was very down to earth, but anyways, um, it sparked my interest to like, I want to know. And then talking to Ty, I was like, okay, what made you believe? It was like at the time, Ty's 22 years old, started at 19. Like, what was his reason? And so he told me, it kind of resonated with me, and I think I slowly started realizing that the guidance I was looking for, that I looked for my father that I didn't get, that I looked for in certain firefighters that maybe were my captains or maybe were, just people I respected. Um, that guidance I lacked really spiritually and in my faith. So
Mm-hmm.
the more I've looked to a book and the more I've looked to the people that have studied and have been involved in their faith has really helped me. And actually, in our job,
Yeah, totally, dude.
a ton of people actually. Since I've been on this journey, I've been open to have these conversations, and like you said, it's kind of a shame that we don't have these a whole lot there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it's just the environment too. Like, it does take a strong person, I believe, to go have these conversations, which should come easy. I mean, like, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher, I don't push anyone to faith, but I just feel like that's my story. I used to coach high school kids at a church, and I had a kid that was actually like an atheist. So he came up to me after classes, he's like, Eric, I want to let you know I'm an atheist. My parents kind of make me come here, but I'm starting to have questions. And like I've been pushed to faith. Like I grew up Catholic and then I kind of switched over to Christianity. My wife is a good Christian, and she kind of brought me into that direction, and I same thing, like I felt welcome and I felt like I belonged. So for me to him, it was basically like, man, like I'm not here to convince you, but all I can say is that I've done life without God in my life and I've done life with God in my life, and I can tell you it's a whole lot easier when you have God on your side. um and like you talked about, like making this job easier, like I feel like there's so many things that we do and you know have to take care of, and these difficult calls we run, that it's like once in a while I'll tell Lisa about it and she's like, oh my God, like how do you get through that? Or like you'll talk to other people, it's like that is like God for me. Like that is,
mm-hmm.
it takes that much strength to be able to go and see some of the things that we have to see or do some of the things that we have to do. It takes so much strength to become out resilient. And still successful and get back on the truck and ready to run another call, as soon as you get back. So that's something that I definitely agree with, dude.
It makes me think about, how when we started, they tell you in the academy, like, it's not your emergency.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like, so growing up, I learned that in my household, my dad was an alcoholic. You could walk on eggshells to not piss him off.
Mhm.
So I learned I was in control of that environment if I could control everything I did.
Mhm.
Um, then you go, growing up, you play sports, whatever. You learn that you're in control of certain situations. Our job, especially when you become a leader, you feel like you're in control. You can take ownership for every mistake, every win, and you kind of lose a little bit of that. It's not your emergency, but when you have some faith, you can like let go of it. You're like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm here to do the best I can, but whatever happens isn't necessarily on me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Um, Something that we talked about too on the way up that I so like we're talking about all these different things, like our obviously our journey in our faith a little bit, but like I like to give some type of like, hey, this is what you can do today, right? Like that's the whole point of this thing, is to try to get something out of it. I kind of talked about last week, like bringing up a lot of that negative energy and things that might be bothering you and kind of translate them into a workout or run, a hike, whatever it is. So we were talking about this on the way up, and something that I was thinking about was, especially as Christian, I'm kind of coming back into my faith more now than ever. I've been reading the Bible a lot more. So this is stuff that's kind of renewed in me, and something that like has really been heavily on my mind is that, like, in the beginning, like in Genesis, in the beginning of the Bible, it talks about how God basically created everything. Remember, we were talking about this on the way up, like God created everything. And you read that at face value and you're like, yeah, okay, we know that, right? Like God created. But like you look around and like it's really like it almost makes me in awe, like, okay, if he created everything, then me being out here with his creation is being with him. So like what that means for me is like I've picked up running recently, which has never been my favorite, but I've learned to enjoy it through this lens. It's like, hey, when I'm out running in nature, like in Prescott, we both went for a run in the
Mhm.
morning. He did 6 miles. I only did like three, but running around like before the sun came up, it's chilly. Like it's a beautiful picture that you're running through and trying to capture in your mind, like, this is God's creation and I'm like running with God right now. Like I'm spending time with him right now out here in nature. Like that is not reserved for Christians, but I think that if you have that faith, it kind of opens up a dimension of visibility that you maybe didn't have before. So like if you feel like you need to reconnect, like you're disconnected, maybe you're numb, like if you need to reconnect, go outside. Like Phoenix is hot, it gets hot, but it like take a drive somewhere where it's beautiful. Like I'm from Southern California, it doesn't take long to get to the mountains if you're in LA area, or the beach, or and when you're there, like when you spend times in these places of, you know, peace, quiet, nature, beauty, like really take in and think about like, man, I'm spending time with God right now. And it like I think you feel that. I
Yeah.
think people feel that when they go up there, but they don't really recognize that like that feeling is that's for me that's where it's coming from, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think your eyes have to be open to it. Like I said, that that one run I was on was like, we can easily look into, man, my body hurts, my knees hurt, it's hot,
Yeah.
you know, whatever that might be, but you could also appreciate everything, and the fact that you're up there doing it.
Yeah.
Even like you say, like 6'3", whatever,
Yeah.
like you got up that morning, you went for a run.
But able to do it.
Yes.
Like I think in our job too, like something that I learned early on was just like the fragility of life. Like that sounds like probably more than it is, but like how many times have you ran calls where someone's driving to work or driving back from work, or walking down the street, a dad and his kid trying to cross the street at a crosswalk, and a car flips, hits him, kills his kid, and
I
he's
do.
like, I mean,
Crit,
maybe that call, I've had that call. I probably shouldn't say like how many times have you ran that call, but just something like that
dude,
where it's like
yeah.
in a flash of a second, your entire life is completely changed. Whether it's a loss of life, a loss of limb, a
Yeah.
loss of ability, like people don't realize how special life is until it's no longer available to them. And I think we see that every single day, and it's so hard to cope with that if you don't have faith. Like
Yeah.
if you don't believe that there's a bigger plan and purpose for you, right?
Yeah. I agree.
Um, but anyways, that's kind of the thing that we wanted to talk about here was just like this is again like people kind of go through a lot of different things, and it's there's outlets, there's inlets, and there's different ways to release. And I think for me personally as well, and obviously Fiji too, like that faith was a really good just like kick in the butt to be like, hey, get going. Like you're made for more than this, right? Like you're somebody that can serve a bigger purpose and help be a light in a bigger way than you're currently doing. That's how I felt when I started going through it. Something that kind of like helps me paint that picture of that feeling of like spending time in nature, like with God and his creation. There's a movie that I watched. It's not a station movie, so don't put it on at the station, you'll get roasted. um, it's called Perfect Days, but it's basically like I found this movie kind of haphazardly. I don't even know if I used that word right, but it's called Perfect Days. And it's basically about a old Japanese man that lives in Tokyo, and his job is he's a janitor. He cleans public toilets. That's his whole job. That's his whole life. And the whole movie, he probably says maybe like 10 words if I remember, but the whole movie is him literally like doing his job. He'll clean these little toilets and then he'll stop. And as he's taking his little lunch break, he's just looking at like every single leaf. Like he's being very like what's the word I'm looking for? Like very
Present.
present. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like finding time to be present in that moment. And he's literally just looking at every little tree, looking at like the sun radiating down through the leaves, the colors it makes. Like it's a really beautiful movie, and it doesn't say much, but it almost makes you a little emotional after. Just like I watched it with my mom actually. She was at our house visiting, she was crying. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, that was kind of emotional. But then you like start wondering like why was that like emotional? And I think just finding beauty in the existing world around us is, I think we take that for granted. Like go out and try to do that. Like try to bring some of that mindfulness to your daily life. It could literally be anything. Like it's so
Mhm.
simple, and I think that we take that for granted because there could be a day where you lose your vision, you can't see that anymore, or you lose your sense of taste. I mean, how many during COVID lost their sense of taste? And it's like, man, I wish I could
Yeah.
taste this again. It's like simple little things that you don't realize you miss until it's gone.
Well, it reminds me of when you were talking about Gianna and going to school, and you were
Yeah.
saying like, you know, you were so angry in that moment. She's like, "Oh, I like to see the,
Yeah.
I like to see the kids getting picked up for
Yeah.
school." And you're like,
It's true, dude. Like it's just like that's the whole purpose of this thing, right? Like just bring some different perspective and have some people listening, like, you know what, let me try that. Like maybe it's someone struggling with their faith, or someone that hasn't really, thought about that,
mhm.
or whatever. Like maybe that's an option to try. Like
Yeah.
again, I'm not pushing. I am not a preacher. I would never do those types of things because I don't like how that feels for me. But that's just something for me, and obviously for Fiji. And you're right, dude. There are a lot of people that when you start talking about it, you're like, well, I didn't know that. Like I try not to cuss. I try not to like do things sometimes. Like I don't drink anymore, and that's part of it. I'll get into that later, but I'm completely sober. I have been for like a year and a half, and a big part of that was like my journey in faith. I just felt like that was right for me. It's not right for everybody, but for me, like that was the right move. Um, but I think that was like a good way to just get an interesting perspective from someone who kind of grew up with some challenges, came into this career, your outlook initially, and then with
Mhm.
faith, how that's kind of changed the way that you view things, and the way that you kind of carry yourself now. So good.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening. Um, yeah, if there's again, if there's anybody that has a story to tell, if there's anybody that feels like someone would be good to hear on, this is a quick thing. I somebody wrote at the station the other day, and their dad was a police officer, and this kid was telling me that his dad basically is in charge of doing like child crimes. So
Oh
like he
Lord.
has to sometimes pose as like someone interested in like an underage child or something. I I don't know about you, dude. I could not imagine doing that job and not. I don't know how someone would do that. Like I would love to have someone like that on the show. Like to me, I would. lose my job. I'd probably
Yeah.
end up in prison, and I'd be getting 3 square meals a day and hanging out with some new friends.
Hmm.
Like I could not do that job. That
Yeah.
would mess me up so that would wreck me mentally. So I don't know. I was just having that thought, but something like that, like if you have someone that you think that would be good, a good perspective, um, on this show, I'd love to have them. Love to meet up with them. We are outside. This is my whole thing though. Like we were talking, like I don't need the whole fancy studio. Like I'd rather kind of be outside with some of the things that we were talking about. So there's little flies flying around, whatever. Who cares? We're still doing it. So again, thanks for listening. Thank you for the support so far. It's actually been like really motivating to continue this journey. And Fiji, thanks for coming on, bro. I seriously, dude, like that was awesome, man. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, bro.